Welcome to the biggest supercar head-to-head of the year. One of these monsters is the best £250,000 supercar on sale today.
But which one is it? Ferrari 296 GTB or McLaren 750S? Do the honours belong to Maranello or Woking?
The 296 GTB replaces the F8 Tributo, but unlike that car and decades worth of forebears, it's powered not by a V8, but a twin-turbo V6 with hybrid drive. It produces 819 brake horsepower and 545 pound-foot of torque. That's enough for 0 to 62 miles per hour in 2.9 seconds and 205 at the top end. The 296 GTB costs £241,560 before options.
This is a whole new era for Ferrari. For decades, the baby mid-engine Ferrari supercar had a V8. It's gone. Now we've got this hybrid V6 with twin turbos. A lot of people found that hard to accept. Honestly, just drive the 296 GTB and you won't be thinking about the old V8. You just won't. This is an outrageously good powertrain. It's so well developed, so well done. It's all about the integration of that electric motor with the twin turbo V6. And frankly, you cannot tell that it's there. You were just not aware of there being an electric motor supporting the engine. It just feels like an utterly flawless V6 motor. What do I mean by that? It revs nice and high. It's got loads of power and torque, really linear as well. But that motor, it gives it this sense of muscle and lightning sharp responses that you just don't get from other turbo engines. So yeah, this is a phenomenal powertrain. The integration is absolutely spectacular. It's the best hybrid I've ever come across. I'm blown away by it. The performance is mighty. The response is immediate. It even sounds good, that kind of half a V12 soundtrack. I can't criticize the power unit in any way, and the gearbox, absolutely fantastic too. First things first, can we just appreciate the spec of this 296 GTB, please? Dark blue outside with this sort of chocolate suede on the inside. It's gorgeous, lovely and subtle, unlike certain other cars that we've got here today. Here's the key, look. It's quite a nice thing actually. I mean, that's quite bold, isn't it? But it's quite a nice little thing to have in your pocket. I think if this was your car, you'd feel quite good about that. What about this interior then? It feels really roomy and spacious. You've got all this space here, so it's not a sort of snug, cozy cockpit. It's quite airy. These seats, carbon shell seats, they look fantastic. I just think they're lacking a little bit of support. My thighs don't really feel well supported, particularly in cornering, these bits. Maybe they're just a little bit too flat, a bit too small. They're quite comfy though. Otherwise, the seating position's pretty good. This digital instrument display, A, it's enormous, and B, it's very, very complicated. Certainly it looks that way. With a little bit of time, you sort of understand that it's not quite as complicated as you think at first. It doesn't necessarily bombard you with information, and you learn which bits are important. We've got these haptic controls on the steering wheel that are not the easiest to use. It takes a bit of time to get used to those, but that's the point. If you own this car and you've got time, you'd get used to them, I'm sure. There's so much going on with this steering wheel. You've got these different modes here for the powertrain. You've got these graphics that disappear and they only illuminate when they want to, it seems. The Manettino here for your different drive modes. There is a lot going on, but as I say, with time, with familiarity, I'm sure it begins to make sense. The chassis, I have to say, is pretty phenomenal as well. I'm in race mode, but I've got bumpy road mode on just to slacken the dampers off a little bit.
We've got a bit of rain now as well, so a slightly softer chassis setup is only going to help us out. And the chassis, goodness me. Massive grip, really good traction actually, that's a surprise. But the grip is really strong, really consistent. The balance in the chassis is phenomenal. In bumpy road mode, it deals with this bumpy road absolutely beautifully. It's serene, it's calm. The ride is plush and fluid. Ferrari, they just know what they're doing with this stuff. What about the steering? Electrically assisted. It's got that slightly hyperactive, over-caffeinated kind of feel. It is very lively. I actually don't mind it though. I can read it. I can sort of tune into it and learn to trust the steering, to place the car where I want to place it, to read the grip at the front end. But if there is a weakness in this car, it's probably that. Even so, that McLaren has got its work cut out.
The Intercooler is so much more than just a YouTube channel. We have a popular weekly podcast available wherever you get your podcasts and a multi-award-winning ad-free online car magazine on website and app. We publish the best stories daily by what we think is the finest team of automotive writers working anywhere in the world today. To see why the Intercooler has won a bunch of awards, click the link on screen or in the description to start your 30-day free trial. The 750S is an evolution of the 720S. With less weight, shorter gearing and more focused suspension tuning, the 750S is designed to be a sharper and more thrilling car than the one it replaces. Its twin-turbo V8 produces 740 brake horsepower and 590 pound-foot of torque. The McLaren is lighter than the Ferrari by almost 200 kilograms, thanks to its carbon fibre construction and lack of hybrid hardware, so it's fractionally quicker than the Ferrari. 62 miles per hour flashes by in 2.8 seconds and the top speed is 206. It costs from £243,500.
Right away, this McLaren has a more intense kind of character. Feels like a way more focused kind of car. It's more aggressive, it's more intense, more immediate. It feels like this could be the LT version, you know, the really hot, lightweight, stripped out, hardcore model. It's not, but it feels like it could be. And so straight away, it feels like a very different sort of car to the Ferrari. And the powertrain is totally different as well. No hybrid assistance at all. V8, twin turbos. And the performance is absolutely savage. It's ferocious. Third gear, particularly in the dry, foot all the way down, and through 5, 6, 7, 8,000 RPM, it just rips your face off. Honestly, you flatten the accelerator and it's like lighting a rocket and all of a sudden you're off to the moon. It's unbelievable how fast this car feels right at the top end. Quicker than the Ferrari, no question. What it doesn't have is the immediate throttle response that you get from the Ferrari's hybrid powertrain. That's a real old McLaren bugbear. Actually, this 4-litre engine, it's about as good as McLaren's V8s have been in terms of throttle response. It's not as laggy as some of the others, particularly the 3.8s. But the performance, my God, unbelievable. Great gear shift as well.
This McLaren has a fantastic seating position. McLarens always do. You're reclined, your legs are almost horizontal with your feet way out in front of you. The steering wheel comes really close. And then you're in a goldfish bowl. You've just got fantastic visibility all round with a really low scuttle. It's vintage McLaren. I love it in these interiors. We now have this instrument binnacle up here, which moves as you move the steering wheel. It does work well. It means you always have a consistent view of the instruments. We've got bucket seats in this one. They're super supportive, much more supportive than the Ferrari seats. They're probably a bit bony, a bit thinly padded over long journeys. They might start bothering you. The drive modes are all up here now on these sort of rocker switches. They used to be down here in the middle, but they've moved them up here, same with the Artura. That works quite well. Steering wheel, totally the opposite philosophy to Ferrari. Ferrari put everything they can on the steering wheel. Here, I've only got a horn. That's all I have on the steering wheel. I think I prefer this method. It just means it's less cluttered, it's less distracting. All it's really there for is to turn the front wheels. That's the way I like it. This is a more intense kind of car in terms of its chassis as well. The ride is just a little bit firmer than the Ferraris. Not quite as supple, not quite as serene. It does still deal with a bumpy road, but you feel the bumps more. Grip, certainly in the dry, is mighty. We're on Trofeo tyres here. We've had a bit of rain, so grip is not what I'd like it to be, nor is traction, so I'm having to be a little bit careful. But the chassis is damn effective, no question. Great balance, rock solid body control. It's so flat through corners. But it's the steering, that's the one huge advantage this car has over the Ferrari. Hydraulically assisted, really calm, measured rate of response, super accurate, good feedback. In terms of steering, the McLaren is light years ahead of the Ferrari. But is it the better car overall? It's a tough one. Let's go and find Andrew Frankel and see if we can declare a winner. Rain stops play. We got lucky with the weather until we didn't get lucky with the weather. But this is, I mean, it's April in the north of Wales.
Yes.
You're going to get some rain at some point,
So we're
aren't you?
done up here. I'm like a Michelin man.
Yeah.
Freezing. Come and drive some supercars, they said.
We've
Yes.
had enough dry weather at least to properly assess these cars.
Absolutely.
Andrew's going to be writing the full written review. It's live now. You can click the link and go and read his story. Remember, you can sign up in seconds to beat the paywall with a 30-day free trial. We've got Apple Pay, Google Pay. You can sign up in no time at all. Andrew,
Yes.
Ferrari versus McLaren.
Yeah.
I just love this
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Hopefully we're going to get to be doing this, you know, for decades to come.
Yes.
Because they're such tantalising head-to-heads, aren't they?
Yeah.
I actually want to start with the Ferrari.
Okay.
Because this really is a new era for Ferrari, isn't it? The V8 has gone.
Yep.
V6 hybrid.
Yep.
I think it's a sensational car. And in this spec in particular, I think it's a very, very pretty car.
Yes.
More so than the bright orange one.
Agreed. Yeah. So this is a very standard car. It doesn't have the Assetto Fiorano pack on it. And in my view, it's all the better for it. It's to me, this is what this kind of Ferrari should be. It's such I mean, it's ridiculously fast,
Yeah.
but it's also it's just such a lovely place to be. You know, it's so comfortable. It just works really, really well. It's a kind of go anywhere, do anything supercar in a way that you know, an Assetto Fiorano car with racing harnesses and everything else just isn't. And I think this is absolutely the embodiment of what I think a modern Ferrari should be. It's much more, for instance, also than an SF90.
Yeah, I agree. It's a much sort of more broadly defined car
Yeah.
than the Assetto Fiorano
Yeah.
296.
Yeah.
It's more comfortable over a bumpy road,
Yeah.
more usable.
It's just a better car.
It is a better car,
Yeah,
isn't it?
it's a better car.
I said in my in-car that I do not miss the old V8.
I don't miss it at all.
The
because
hybrid V6 is fantastic.
The hybrid, I mean, this V6, it's. I'm quite familiar with the McLaren Artura, which is a fine car, but the hybrid V6 in this is on a different level, and we have to be careful about comparing Arturas with 296s because actually they're different cars at different price points, and actually the
This is the
McLaren
rival, isn't it?
is the true competitor. But the V6 hybrid in this is apart from the weight, and there is a bit of added mass. It's almost the answer to everything because it's got ridiculous power, but it's also got no turbo lag. It's got fantastic low down torque, and it sounds really great too. It's you know, let this loose on a decent road, and it's just heaven on earth. And to me, it's like the return of the great Ferrari powertrain. And I love that. And no, I think you're absolutely right. I wouldn't have a V8 over this for anything.
It's really interesting, isn't it? People seem to want the last of the V8s because the F8 Tributo really holds its value.
Yes,
more so than
I mean, you pay the same for a 4-year-old F8 Tributo as you do for a 1-year-old one of these.
Yeah, it's bizarre. Yeah. It's really bizarre.
This is the better car.
It is. McLaren 750S.
Yes. Shrinking violet, very...
Two ends of the scale, aren't they, really? Quite subtle, understated, very pretty. This is...
Not subtle.
Not subtle.
Not understated.
Bright
Not
orange.
that pretty.
I think they've, sadly, fiddled with the styling of the previous 720S a bit too much, and particularly the eye sockets. It's quite fussy now.
It is. It's not helped by this very vivid... this is what we call a sort of... a press car colour. It's the kind of colour that they put cars in because they want them to stand out on the page or on the website or whether, and I kind of understand why they do it. And it certainly does that, but when you come and park it next to a 296 GTB in Potsy blue, which is so beautifully discreet and understated, it does, yes, it does show up the flaws a bit.
These are direct competitors, these two.
Yes, in price and in power to weight ratio.
Yeah, very similar.
Yeah.
But actually, they have quite different characters.
Yeah, more so than I expected.
Massively more so.
And it's not anything to do with that. It's because this has actually moved in a different direction to the car that it replaces, the 720S. It's much more like you got it. You drove it for the first time, and you got out, and you said this feels like an LT to me.
Yeah.
And I think that is absolutely bang on. This is closer by far to the kind of character you get in a 765 LT than a 720S. And I am still trying to work out in my head whether that's a good or a bad thing.
So what do we mean by that? It's a more raw car than this one. It doesn't have the same very supple ride. What else about it? It's got bucket seats, this car, hasn't it?
Which I really like, actually.
Yeah, they are good.
Yeah.
They are good.
It's not like the Senna seats, which are really uncomfortable.
No.
It's bonkers fast. It actually, even though it's got less power, because it's so much lighter, it is, whether you compare curb weights or dry lighters weights, it's about 200 kilos lighter than the Ferrari. So actually, even though it's, 70 horsepower down, it's got better to power to weight ratio. And when this thing really gets going,
oh my God,
it is nuts.
I said it's like a rocket to the moon, isn't it? Third gear when you let it rip.
Yeah.
So we are here to identify a winner. We've got a bit more driving to do. I think this weather is going to lift.
Yeah.
We've got a bit more driving to do. I'm leaning towards this one.
I just don't know, because I see this car and I think it is beautiful, it is so usable, but on the other hand, this is quicker.
Yeah.
To me, it handles better.
Yeah.
The Ferrari have a very particular way of doing their steering.
Yeah.
McLaren is a much more linear, progressive kind of car. It's less usable. I think it's more fun. And that's what's going on in my head at the moment. The good news is by the time you get to see this, as I said, it will have been resolved and I will have come down one way or the other. But I mean, one of the great things is we come up and we do these things, and usually it's quite clear what's going to win it. I think most of these comparison tests that we've done, we've known sometimes before we've done it, had a good idea, and then it becomes quite clear. But literally here, after all day yesterday, driving these cars, we need to go and drive them some more, because right now it is that close.
It's super close.
Yeah.
We've got one more thing that we need to talk about, because there is a third car here today, the McLaren 720S, so the predecessor to this one. And actually, when you look at the two alongside each other, you really appreciate visually how many changes they've made for the 750S, and particularly in their two specifications, how pretty and understated the 720S is.
Yeah. I mean, I've always said that the 720S is the most broadly defined of all supercars, and you go and drive that, and it's not quite as quick as this, but actually it doesn't make much difference, because it's still as fast as you could ever want a road car to be. But you do have slightly longer gearing, you have a slightly more compliant ride, it's certainly a more usable car, slightly less exciting, I guess, but certainly for the kind of money you can pick up one of those these days compared to the kind of money that McLaren will charge you for one of these,
it's half price. It is half the price, which is almost impossible to ignore, isn't it?
Or certainly 100 grand off.
Yeah, a hell of a lot.
Yeah,
a hell of a lot. So Andrew is going to reveal a bit more about how the 750S and the 720S compare in his written story. But thank you ever so much for watching. Remember, you can go and sign up to the Intercooler website in seconds using this link here. And please remember to subscribe to this YouTube channel because we're going to keep producing videos just like this one, hoping next time for better weather. We'll see.
See ya.